Happy morning, students. Welcome back to Blue Stars Higher Secondary School English online class. So, today we are going to learn the sixth unit poem, Incident of the French Camp. The poet is Robert Browning. So, here, before going to the poem, I would like to ask you some questions. Have you played chess or watched the game carefully? Yes. By seeing this picture, you can identify the chess pieces, isn't it? And you can also tell us the role of each piece in the game. So, from ancient India to the computer age, the military has used chess as both a metaphor and even as training for warfare. Chess began in 6th century in India as a 64 square board game called Chaduranga, precisely modeled on the military forces of the day. So now let us move to the author. Here, who is the author? Robert Browning. He was born on 7th May 1812 to 12 December 1889. Was an English poet and playwright whose mastery of the dramatic monologue made him one of the foremost Victorian poets. He was born in Camberwell, a suburb of London, on 7th May 1812. He was educated mainly at home, but he attended a short course in Greek at London University. His poems are known for their irony, characterization, dark humor, social commentary, historical settings, and challenging vocabulary and syntax. He developed a unique form of conversational and rhythmic verse. The collection Dramatis Personae and the book-length epic poem The Ring and the Book made him a leading British poet. By 1881, in recognition of his outstanding contribution to literature, a literary society called Browning Society was established. So, this is about the life history and works of the poet Robert Browning. So, he was born in Camberwell, a suburb of London, on 7th May 1812, and he was mainly educated at home, but he attended a short course in Greek at London University. What is his famous poems? His poems are known for their irony, characterization, dark humor, social commentary, historical settings, and challenging vocabulary and syntax. So, the collection Dramatis Personae and the book-length epic poem The Ring and the Book made him a leading British poet. So before going to the poem, now let us, before going to listen to the poem, let's know about the interesting background of the incident of the French camp. What is that interesting background of the incident of the French camp? Let us see. Napoleon Bonaparte. He was born in 1769 and he died in 1821. Was originally an officer in the French army, became the army chief and a legendary warrior who later known for his military skill and genius. The poem Incident of the French Camp narrates an actual incident in the war in 1809 between France and Austria led by Napoleon. Napoleon was standing on a little mount eagerly looking towards Ratisbon. His mind was oppressed with anxious thoughts, and he said to himself that all his ambitious plans would come to nothing if Lens failed to storm Ratisbon. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he was an officer in the French army and he became the army chief and a legendary warrior. And the poem, this poem, Incident of the French Camp, narrates an actual incident, means a real incident in the war in 1809 between France and Austria, which was led by Napoleon. So here Napoleon was eagerly waiting for Lens. Napoleon was standing on a little mount, eagerly looking towards Ratisbon. His mind was oppressed with anxious thoughts, and he said to himself that all his ambitious plans would come to nothing if Lens failed to stop Ratisbon. So, the poem describes an act of chivalry, gallantry, patriotism, and sacrifice on the part of a young French soldier. So, listen carefully. The poem describes an act of chivalry, gallantry, patriotism, and sacrifice on the part of a young French soldier. So, now let us move to the poem. You know, the French stormed Ratisbon, a mile or so away on a little Mount Napoleon, stood on a storming day with neck outthrust. You fancy how legs wide, arms locked behind, as if to balance the prone brow, oppressive with its mind. So, this is the first stanza. The first stanza, what does it mean? It says, again, I'll read you the poem. You know, we French stormed Ratisbon, a mile or so away, on a little Mount Napoleon, stood on our storming day, with neck outthrust, you fancy how, legs wide, arms locked behind, as if to balance the prone brow, oppressive with its mind. So here the poet is the narrator of this poem. So here we refers to soldiers. We refers to the French soldiers. What is in the storm Ratisbon? Storm means sudden violent. Ratisbon means a city in Austria. Storm means violent. Ratisbon means a city in Austria. So here, Ratisbon was stormed by the soldiers of France. So Napoleon stood on a mount and he stood a mile away. So listen, the first four lines illustrates here V refers to the soldiers, French soldiers, and he who is the speaker here, the poet. The poet is the speaker of this poem, and here B refers to the French soldiers. Storm means violent. Ratisbon, a city in Austria. So here Napoleon Ratisbon was stormed by the soldiers of France. So Napoleon stood on a mount. He stood a mile away. What is in by mount? Mount means hillock, or we can say hill. So Napoleon stood on a mount and he stood a mile away. Next line, with neck outthrust, you fancy how, legs wide, arms locked behind, as if to balance the prone brow, oppressive with its mind. So these lines represent his neck. Napoleon's neck was extended forward, his leg was wide and arms locked, and his eyebrow was inclined downward. Prone means inclined downward. Inclined downward. So in the first stanza here, the poet is the narrator of the poem, and here B refers to the French soldiers, and Ratisbon was stormed by the soldiers of France. Napoleon stood on a mount, he stood a mile away, and his neck was extended forward, and his leg was wide and arms locked. His eyebrow was inclined downward. So, this is the meaning of the first stanza. Now, let us move to the second stanza. Just perhaps he mused, my plans that soar to earth may fall. Let once my army leader lanes waver at yonder wall. Outwits the battery smokes that flew, a rider bound on bound, full galloping, nor bridle drew, until he reached the mount. So again I will read you. Just as perhaps he mused, my plans that soar to earth may fall. Let once my army leader lanes waver at yonder wall, out twixt the battery smokes that flew, a rider bound and bound, full galloping, nor bridle drew, until he reached the mount. So in this stanza he refers to Napoleon. Lens, who is Lens? He was the chief of the French army. So Napoleon stood on a mount in order to know about the result of the battle. Next line, our twigs, the battery smokes that flew, a rider bound, full galloping, nor bridle drew, until he reached the mount. Here a rider is a small boy and a young soldier. He appeared from the clouds of smoke and fire. So he appeared from the clouds of smoke and fire. Here the phrase full galloping suggests the fastest running of the horse. As the rider was severely wounded, he wanted to convey his victory news before his death. So the rider was in a hurry. So this stanza represents, so the second stanza represents here he refers to Napoleon. Lens. Who is Lens? He was the chief of the French army. Napoleon stood on a mount in order to know about the result of the battle. And here a rider is a small young soldier. He appeared from the clouds of smoke and fire. He appears from the clouds of smoke and fire. Here, the phrase full galloping suggests the fastest running of the horse. As the rider was severely wounded, he wanted to convey his victory news before his death. So, the rider was in a hurry. Next, shall we move to the third stanza? Then off there flung in smiling joy, and held himself erect by just his horse made a boy you hardly could suspect. So tight he kept his lips compressed, scarce any blood came through. You looked twice ere you saw his breast was all but shot in two. Listen carefully. Then off there flung in smiling joy, and held himself erect by just his horseman, a boy you hardly could suspect. So, what is the meaning here? The rider was very happy with smiling face. The boy was as high as the horseman. So, here the boy, he was as high as the horseman and he was very happy with smiling face. So tight he kept his lips compressed, scarce any blood came through. You looked twice ere you saw his breast was all but shot in two. So here in these four lines, he kept his lip tight and compressed. He kept his lip and tight and compressed. He was shot twice on his breast on the battle. So he was shot twice on his breast at the battle. Here the poet appreciates the attitude of the soldier. Though he was badly wounded, he displayed an extraordinary courage, confidence, and self control with a smiling face. So, again, I will tell you. Then off there flung in smiling joy and held himself erect means straight, by just his horseman, a boy you hardly could suspect. So, here the rider was very happy with smiling face, and the boy was as high as horseman. So tight he kept his lips compressed, scarce any blood came through. You looked twice ere you saw his breast was all but shot in two. He kept his lips tight and compressed, and here you can see this. You looked twice ere you saw his breast was all but shot in two. So what is the meaning of this two line? He was shot twice on his breast at the battle. And also, the poet appreciates the attitude of the soldier because though he was badly wounded, he displayed an extraordinary courage, confidence, and self control with a smiling face. So, now let us move to the fourth stanza. Well, cried he, Emperor, by God's grace, we have got you, Ratisbon. The marshals in the marketplace, and you will be there anon to see your flag bird flap his wings, where I to heart's desire perched him, perched him. The chief's eye flashed, his plans soared up again like fire. Again I'll read you. Well, cried he, Emperor, by God's grace, we have got you, Ratisbud. We have got you, Ratisbud. The marshals in the marketplace, and you will be there anon to see your flag bird flap his wings, where I, to heart's desire, perch him. The chief's eye flashed, his plans soared up again like fire. So, in this stanza, the poet represents the riding at great speed, jumping and leaping. He approached the mount where Napoleon stood. Here, the soldiers they were riding at great speed, jumping and leaping, and he approached the mount where Napoleon stood. As he came closer, the narrator noticed the rider, young boy, was severely wounded. He exclaimed with pride that French had conquered Ratisbon and he himself had hoisted the flag of France at the marketplace, Ratisbon with heartful desire. So when Napoleon heard the news, his plan soared up like fire. So again I'll tell you this stanza represents the soldier. He was riding at great speed, jumping and leaping, and he approached the mount where Napoleon stood. As he came closer, the narrator noticed that the rider, young boy, was severely wounded. He exclaimed with pride that French had conquered Ratisbon and he himself had hoisted the flag of France at the marketplace. Ratisbon with heartful desire. When Napoleon heard the news, his plans soared up like fire. So now let us move to the last stanza. The chief's eye flashed, but presently softened itself as sheets filled the mother eagle's eye when her bruised eaglet breathes. You are wounded, nay, his soldier's pride, touched to the quick, he said, I am killed, sire, and his chief beside, smiling, the boy fell dead. The chief's eye flashed, but presently softened itself as sheets filled the mother eagle's eye when her bruised eaglet breathes. You are wounded, nay, his soldier's pride touched to the quick, he said, I am killed, sire, and his chief beside, smiling, the boy fell dead. So his eyes, in this stanza, his eyes softened when he saw that the soldier was severely wounded. The French general Napoleon is compared to the mother eagle in the lines. Here, the French soldier, he was compared to the mother eagle in the above lines. On seeing the wounded soldier, the feelings of Napoleon were just like those of the mother eagle who becomes sad when she finds her young ones badly bruised on the verge of death, isn't it? So here Napoleon was compared to the mother eagle. Mother eagle. On seeing the wounded soldier, the feelings of Napoleon were just like those of the mother eagle who became sad when she finds her young ones badly bruised on the verge of death. So the last student, I am killed, sire, and his chief beside, smiling, the boy fell dead. So these lines, the given lines, the poet appreciates the heroic behavior of the young soldier. He showed no sign of pain and smiling in joy, jumped off the horse and gave the happy news of victory to the emperor. Like a caring mother eagle, the emperor asked if he was wounded. The wounded soldier replied proudly that he was killed and he fell down dead heroically. So, this stanza represents, listen carefully, his eyes softened when he saw that the soldier was severely wounded. The French general Napoleon is compared to the mother eagle in the above lines. On seeing the wounded soldier, the feelings of Napoleon were just like those of the mother eagle who became sad when she finds her young ones badly bruised on the verge of death. These two lines, these last two lines represent here the poet appreciates the heroic behavior of the young soldier. He showed no sign of pain and smiling in joy, jumped off the horse and gave the happy news of victory to the emperor. Like a caring mother eagle, the emperor asked if he was wounded. The wounded soldier replied proudly that he was killed and he fell down dead heroically. So, this poem describes an act of patriotism and sacrifice of a young soldier. Thus, the young soldier fought for his country and showed his patriotism. So, this is the poem. So, now let us move to the glossary. Stormed. What is meant by storm? Sudden violent attack. Stormed means sudden violent attack. Ratisbon, a city in Austria. Ratisbon, a city in Austria. Mount means hillock or hill. Mount, hillock or hill. Outthrust, extended forward. Fancy, imagine, fancy, imagine. Prone, incline downward, prone, incline downward. Oppressive, harsh, domineering. Oppressive, harsh, domineering. Mused, thought deeply. Mused means thought deeply. Lance, Duke of Montbello, a general in Napoleon's army. Bridle, the headgear used to control a horse. Bridle, the headgear used to control a horse. Compressed, pressed together. Compressed, pressed together. Anon, soon. Anon, soon. Flagbird, the imperial eagle on the French flag. Flagbird, the imperial eagle on the French flag. Perched, sat on, rested. Perched, sat on, rested. Sheaths, covers. Sheaths, covers. So now let us move to the summer appreciation question. Legs wide, arms locked behind, as if to balance the prone row, oppressive with its mind. Whose action is described here? Napoleon's action is described here. What is meant by prone brow? The phrase prone brow means eyebrow inclined downward. It conveys anxiety and concern. What is his state of mind? Napoleon was anxious. You are wounded, nay, his soldier's pride touched to the quick, he said. Why did the boy contradict Napoleon's words? The boy felt proud to die for his country. So he contradicted Napoleon's words by saying that he was killed and not wounded. Why was his pride touched? His pride was touched to the quick when Napoleon asked him whether he was wounded. A film, The Mother Eagle's Eye, when her bruised eaglet breathes. Who is compared to the mother eagle in the above lines? Napoleon is compared to the mother eagle. Explain the comparison. The concerned mother eagle sees her bruised eagle that breathes painfully. Likewise, Napoleon worriedly looks at the wounded soldier. So, this is the summary of the poem. The poem Incident of the French Camp by Robert Browning describes an act of bravery. During the attack of the French army on Ratisbon, a city in Austria, Napoleon was anticipating the result. He was watching the war standing on a mount near the battlefield. Suddenly, a young soldier was found riding towards the mount. He showed no sign of pain. With a smile of joy, he jumped off the horse. He exclaimed with pride at that Ratisbon had been conquered. He himself had hoisted the French flag there. On hearing the happy news, Napoleon's plans soared up like fire, but his eyes softened when he saw that the soldier was fatally wounded. Like a concerned mother eagle seeing the bruised eaglet, Napoleon asked him if he was wounded. The valiant soldier said that he was killed. Smiling, he fell dead. So, this is a very interesting poem, isn't it, students? Okay. What is the conclusion? Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. So listen, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. So thank you, students. I hope you would have understood the poem. So thank you, students. Have a good day.